Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. An original adaptation written and read for you by Jon Buckeridge. Part 22. The Green Knight. Gawain felt a white-hot flash at the side of his neck and heard the whistle as the axe arced by, trailing flashes of ruby-red blood. He followed the droplets as the axe hit the ground and his mind reeled in horror. "He's sliced clean through your neck," his inner voice squawked in alarm. "You're dead, but your brain just hasn't realised it yet." Gawain knew it to be true, and he waited for the sickening moment where his body would adjust to its new and final reality, and life would end. But it never came. Tentatively, ever so delicately, he lifted his hand to his neck, and found it quite intact. His head was still firmly fixed to his body, all except a clean cut on the side of his neck where the very edge of the axe's blade had bitten briefly and then passed him by. Gawain's finger drew away, showing bright blood. "Did he miss?" asked the voice in his head, and Gawain looked up at the giant in confusion. The hulking figure beamed down at him, a broad grin on his face. "I believe," he told Gawain, "that settles our account." It was only then that Gawain realised he was holding his breath, and he let it go in a rush. His body felt rubbery, like all his bones had melted in a flash of adrenaline, and his head span. He felt his knees begin to buckle, and then a huge hand was holding him steady. "Easy now," the Green Knight said, "easy." He guided Gawain to the base of a tree and set his back against it. Gawain slumped down it gratefully and looked up at him. He gasped. "I don't understand." He still felt hot and tingly all over. Strange spots were dancing in his vision, and everything around him seemed like it was coming from a long way away. "Breathe, Gawain," the Green Knight soothed, dropping to one knee and looking him in the eye. "Deep breaths." Gawain followed his instructions. He wasn't sure why, but at that moment no one else was there, and so what other instructions could he follow? He took deep, slow breaths, and gradually his vision returned to normal. His hands were trembling, and he didn't feel like standing was in his immediate future, but he also didn't feel like he was just about to die. Not just yet, anyway. "I'm alive?" he asked the Green Man. "Why am I alive?" "Would you prefer that you were not?" came the rumbling response. "Well, of course not, but I don't understand." The Green Knight nodded. "Then I shall explain." He sat opposite him. "All of this is a game, Gawain," the huge man said. "It was always a game, a challenge, a test, if you will." "So you would never have killed me?" asked Gawain. "Oh, I would have killed you, Gawain." There was a still steadiness to it that stopped it being a threat and made it an absolute certainty. "A year ago you struck a blow at me with all the intention of killing me. You swung all the might of man at me with the intention to destroy, and I would have paid back like for like with gladness in my heart, one less rotten root to poison the tree. And yet," he went on, "you are not the same man who swung that axe at me 1 year ago." He gestured towards the weapon discarded on the ground. "And I see you are no rotten root, but a seed, well planted, and bearing good fruit." Gawain didn't know what to say, and the two men, one giant and one seemingly so small, sat like children and stared silently at one another. Eventually, the question that was nagging Gawain at the back of his mind made its way to the front, and Gawain asked it. "But how did you know that I was so changed?" he asked the man. "I have not seen you for a year. Were there spies in Camelot?" A second, sudden question sprang to his mind. "Were you the hooded figure watching me on my journey?" The knight let out a rumbling chuckle. "Gawain, I had no need of spies," he said. "You and I have known each other well. You have supped at my table and stayed in my home." "What?" began Gawain, but even as he formed the word, the green figure facing him began to change. His hair pulled back, his stature shrunk, his skin lightened to a ruddy pink, and all in one moment, Gawain was face to face with a man he knew well. "Bertilac," he gasped. "Bertilac," he agreed. "Right glad I am to see you, Gawain." He gave a wink, and just like that the lord was gone, and Gawain was facing the green giant once again. "You were Lord Bertilac?" Gawain asked. I am Lord Bertilac, the man replied, when it suits me to be so. Gawain's head was spinning again, and his vision started to swim. Breathing deeply, he tried to order his thoughts. So, the castle? The servants? All real, said the figure. After a fashion. They exist as solidly as you or I, but only within the realms of my power. If they leave the forest or the lands in which I hold sway, they will cease to be. And suddenly Gawain understood why the stable hand would not ride too far afield, and why the castle was so strangely still, and why the trees could bear apples in winter. The Green Man had the power of creation itself within his realm. But the guests? Asked Gawain. The chaplain? Are they trapped? Visitors come and go, Gawain, just as you came and have now gone, though those who dwell too long will begin to... Well, let us say it is perhaps not wise to tarry too long in the castle haute desert, and leave it at that. And Gawain left it at that. The God-botherer is something of a curiosity. He comes and goes, and knows more than he lets on, and whether he shall hold sway over me or I over him is yet to be seen. And so, all of this, all my time with you was, what, a test of my character? Gawain asked. And you passed. The answer came in a simple, steady voice, nothing more than a confirmation of a fact. But, Lady Bertilac, your wife? Gawain asked. A horrible feeling was welling up in him, and he was starting to feel a little sick. I sent her to you myself, the Green Man replied, and now Gawain felt really sick. She tried and tested your virtues, and you held true, for the most part. He looked down at the green girdle at Gawain's waist. It was all a lie? Gawain asked. There was no magic to it? Beyond the magic of a well-woven cloth, no, the knight confirmed. In fact, that sash is the reason for the small amount of blood I shed on my final swing, Gawain. You will note I made 3 swings with my axe. For 2 you received no harm, for on the first 2 days my wife tested you, you were honest with me and passed on all she gave. On the 3rd day, though, you were not so honest. You passed me only part of the truth, and so I passed you only part of the punishment. He looked Gawain in the eyes again and held them steady. Your honesty has saved you, Gawain. But now Gawain was feeling really sick, and horrible thoughts were clawing into his mind. Never mind my honesty, he said. What of your own? You sent your wife to me as a test? What choice did she have in the matter? What will did she have in this test of yours? Then a horrible thought dawned on him, coupled with another nauseating realization. She's not real, is she? He asked in a flat, quiet voice. She is just another object of your creation. Just another playing piece that cannot leave the castle. Gawain's mind flashed back to his conversations with her about her husband's power. And yet I am still within it, she had said. Now he understood. She is as real as anything within that realm. Though I confess I do not think and reason as your race do, I am ancient. I am the trees and the earth and the river running through them, and my ways are far from yours. Was she not real to you? He asked the question dispassionately, earnestly, a concerned craftsman asking a customer about the quality of his workmanship. All too real, said Gawain's inner voice. Everything he had gone through, everything he had felt, all the feelings he had sensed from Lady Bertilac, was all of it false? Was all of it forced? He looked up at the man and scrambled to his feet. They were still unsteady beneath him, but he could not bear to be there a moment longer. I cannot stay here, he told the Green Man. I cannot stay here, he told the Green Knight. I will not be party to these monstrous games of life and death and slavery and subjugation. The Green Knight looked to him imploringly. Come, Gawain, no one was harmed, and a great lesson was learned. I know the lesson you were trying to teach, said Gawain, his voice icy cold, and I care nothing for it. Perhaps we men are a thoughtless race, and perhaps we do lack the balance of nature, but we are far from monstrous. In fact, from where I am standing at this moment, I see only one monster here. He turned to leave. I thank you for your hospitality, sir, but I would not stay with the architect of such a hideous game, who makes playthings out of men and slaves out of women for even a moment longer. The Green Knight, too, was standing now, watching Gawain calmly and without upset. "I never said that I was the architect of your adventure, Gawain," the creature called. "Merely its arbiter." Gawain stopped short. He wanted to leave, wanted to be as far away from that place as he could possibly manage, and yet he needed, to know who had held him in their grip for the last year. Who was the force that had orchestrated everything that had befallen him for the last 12 months and driven him through misery and mystery? "You are not the architect of all this?" he asked the looming figure. "Who is then?" "That," said a silky smooth voice from behind him, "would be me." Thank you for listening. Sir Gawain and the Green Knight is a Settle Stories commission. Written and read for you by Jon Buckeridge. Story consultant was Miriam Sarin. Music was Tectonic by Saedra, downloaded via Uppbeat. It was a Parable Arts production.